On the 19th of December 1997, Titanic premiered. It cost a whopping $200 million to make, which was a record budget for the time. Besides, the movie won 11 Oscar statuettes. It was back in 1987 that James Cameron, the director of Titanic, planned to create a large-scale film about the famous catastrophe that took place in 1912. After watching a documentary about the Titanic on National Geographic, James got the idea, but at the moment he was too busy shooting other movies. Because of that, it wasn't until 1993 that Cameron began to work on the project properly. It was prompted by a book about the sinking given to James for his birthday by his friend Louis Abernathy. So I guess we have to thank Louis for inspiring such an iconic movie. In order to get first-hand experience with the event he was about to depict, in September 1995 Cameron personally made 12 dives to the site of the Titanic, on the bathyscapes Mir 1 and Mir 2, which were on board the Russian research vessel Academic Mstislav Keldysh. By the way, the ship was also involved in the final scene of the film. The director's brother Michael, being an engineer, developed an underwater camera system to film the exterior and interior of the shipwreck. That allowed them to get some truly incredible footage. Back in America, Cameron showed the producers of the 20th Century Fox the footage and assured them that he was ready to start shooting a feature film. By that time, an animation of how the catastrophe happened, drawn by Cameron's special effects studio Digital Domain, was ready. So, on 16th of September 1996, having received the money, James Cameron began shooting the film. With such a colossal budget and scope of production, Titanic naturally could not have been made without a proper choice of the actors for the main roles. And this proved to be a big problem indeed. Matthew McConaughey was considered for the main role at first, but Cameron still rejected him, because he was too old for the role of young Jack. It is also known that even such actors as Tom Cruise and Christian Bale suggested their candidacy, but in the end they were rejected in favor of Leonardo DiCaprio. Cameron approved the actor after just 5 minutes of screen test. A similar situation was with Kate Winslet, who played Rose. She managed to beat such an actress as Gwyneth Paltrow. A completely new studio had to be built on the coast of Rosarito, Mexico, to shoot the film. An almost life-size model of the ship was built in the waters of a huge pool. The final model reached 231 meters in length, while the real liner was just 34 meters longer. But despite the grand scale of the set, the number of repeated details of the ship, such as windows for example, was reduced, and some parts were modeled by only 90%. Yeah, sometimes accuracy has to take the back seat. Interestingly, the bow of the ship has never been built. In order to save money, it was fully CGI. But as a result, it turned out to be even more expensive than if it had been built in reality. The scene at the dock was quite difficult to shoot, because the whole scene turned out to be a mirror image. The thing is that, because of the prevailing wind direction at that time of the year, the smoke from the pipes was blown not to the stern, as required by the script, but to the bow. Meanwhile, the right side of the ship was built, while the actual Titanic anchored at Southampton Dock faced the shore with the left side. As a result, the smoke was blown properly, but all the dock scenery had to be built as a mirror image. Each and every inscription had to be reversed, including the small signs on the ship and the names on the crew's clothes. Can't even imagine what a nightmare it must have been. The departure scene was shot with the help of James Cameron's Digital Domain special effects studio. They used a 13-meter-long model of the Titanic and the crowd of spectators waving their hands in the parking lot against the green screen. Everything else was painted. Water, smoke and birds flying through the air. The CGI holds up wonderfully to this very day. The magnificent panoramic shots of the Titanic floating through the Atlantic Ocean required a great deal of work. It was based on the footage of the Lane Victory, going at full throttle in the open sea, shot from a helicopter. Then the camera moved to the studio, shooting a 13-meter wide still model of the ship against the dark backdrop, the same that was used in the departure scene. Then, a computer-controlled camera in the studio repeated every movement of the camera installed on the helicopter, from which Lane Victory was filmed. The result was super realistic, as if the actual Titanic was being shot from a helicopter. which is a bit of an anachronism, but who cares? The shots are beautiful. In total, 4 perfect copies of the ship were built for the film, with a length of 7.5 meters, 13 meters, 18 meters, and 44 meters respectively. The last copy was broken in half during the filming of the final scene. According to Rob Legato, visual effects supervisor, one of the reasons the special effects in Titanic look so believable is because of the constant improvement in camera positioning control and motion capture software. We used motion capture systems to shoot the way the characters move, stand, and sit in the film. Then we scanned the film to the computer and superimposed the actors on their computer models, Rob Legato recalls. In total, only 40 actors were used during the shooting of the motion capture scenes, which at first doesn't seem to make much sense as we can clearly see way more people on the deck, right? About 8,000 to be precise, yes. And the way they pulled it off is quite simple actually. The Super Effects team simply copied the three-dimensional models they had many times over. Titanic would have been utterly impossible without the use of chroma key. It helped to build the environment for many scenes. One notable example would be the iconic shot at the bow of the ship. The actors were actually at the bow of the set, surrounded by a green background. Another example is the scene in which part of the Titanic with Jack and Rose goes underwater. The actors and the layout behind them were filmed separately, which means the actors first played against a chroma key background, and then the same scene was shot with a layout. In post-production, the materials were combined, and digital doubles and animated splashes were added. Another essential element of the film is the music. James Horner, the composer of the music for Titanic, was supposed to write the instrumental music. The budget of the film was already so bloated that the version with the vocal part was rejected at once, because the managers refused to approve additional expenses. But Horner decided to improvise and wrote a song with words instead of an instrumental composition. James played his first version of the music to Celine Dion on the piano. Nobody would have expected that the singer did not like it so much that she flat out refused to record the song. Celine had to be persuaded to make a demo version of the song, and one version did show up. Since Cameron had his own opinion on the finale, he also had to be persuaded. After waiting for the director to be in his best mood, the composer decided to show the version with vocals. And of course, it was immediately approved. It is remarkable that Celine Dion has released almost 30 solo albums during her career, but this song, which at first she did not like, has remained a calling card of hers since 1998. At the end of the day, I'd say we're all lucky that she changed her opinion. The portrait drawing scene was filmed on Kate Winslet and Leonardo DiCaprio's first day of shooting. After filming, Leo asked Cameron, "Did I do well?" And the director said very seriously, "Well, you know, it's your first day of shooting, so you can still be replaced." And it may or may not have been a joke. We know that DiCaprio is a great actor, but he is not exactly a great painter. So James Cameron himself drew the portrait. It was his hand holding a pencil on close-up scenes. As they say, a talented person must be talented in everything. Another reason to admire James Cameron's tremendous work is the costumes of the characters. He needed the outfits to fit perfectly. It took the designers a whole year to make the costumes. Cameron demanded that the characters' clothes were made in accordance with historical realia, and he did not spare money on perfecting them. The sheer level of attention to detail was absolutely incredible. Everything, absolutely everything matched the original. Even the cutlery, the glasses, the pictures on the napkins. The decorations, which occupied many hundreds of square meters, were authentic up to the last centimeter. Historians who knew everything about the Titanic supervised it. A lot of money has been spent on details that are not even noticeable, and in some cases did not make it into the final cut. The scene where Rose and Jack stand on the deck and see a giant iceberg floating by, pieces of it breaking off and crashing on the deck right next to them, was shot in the following way. Real ice was poured on the set, with the camera moving automatically in a specific way, pointing at the green screen in the background. After that, they filmed a small model of the iceberg, made of assembly foam coated with fiberglass and wax. But this time they used a camera with a small lens, moving in the same way as the camera on the deck with the characters. Combined, the shots of the deck and the model of the iceberg gave the full effect of presence. The only thing left was to add computer animation, to combine the artificial iceberg and the real ice falling on the deck. I would say this is the way CGI should be used ideally, to enhance reality. When creating the scenery of the boiler room, the creators used some tricks. To save money, they built only half of the boiler room, placing a mirror behind it, and the reflection played the role of the remaining scenery. By the way, they intentionally created a stuffy and hot atmosphere on the set, so the sweat on the actors' faces is absolutely real. It was the shipwreck scene, as you might expect, that consumed most of the huge budget. Nothing quite like this has ever been done before. Huge sets were submerged underwater along with stuntmen. Lots of motors, pumps, massive constructions were used, whose only purpose was to create episodes that took a few seconds of the screen time. Of course, each and every take cost a lot of money, as a new try required the complete drying of hundreds of interior parts and reinstalling them in the same order. God, forget about the money, just think of this torturous process the team had to go through over and over again. Nevertheless, James repeated the dining room flooding scene about 10 times. His words, "Okay, now put everything in order, let's try again," made the team desperate. But the crew members bravely followed the director's instructions, and as a result we got an excellent take, which was included in the final cut. Art takes sacrifice. One of the most complicated scenes in the film was the one where the broken part of the ship was lifted to the vertical. This scene could only be filmed in the pavilion by hooking up the entire structure with special winches. In some places, dummies were used instead of people, but there were also stuntmen who, even with their training, found it difficult to hang in this position. At least 3 people, as the filmmakers later admitted, got fractures after falling down during the filming of this scene. Everyone, and I mean absolutely everyone on the set got wet, even the makeup artists, who sometimes had to correct the characters' makeup right in the water. In order to add realism to the action and authenticity to the emotions of the actors, Cameron decided that all the shooting of the sinking Titanic would take place in cold ocean water. There were baths with hot water on the set, where the actors could occasionally warm themselves in order not to freeze to death, as the real victims of the shipwreck. In addition, all the characters were given wetsuits, under which they were told to wear thermal underwear. James Cameron said, "When we filmed Titanic, we did not think about success. We thought we were going to lose a lot of money because we were over budget. I mean, when we began shooting, we thought we'd make a little money. The plan was to spend only 100 million, but we spent all 200 and decided that we were doomed. We would not make anything, not a penny. Rather, it was a question how much we'll lose, 50 million or more. And then it turned out that the film had hit the jackpot. Everyone was shocked." And that is all for today. Please subscribe to our channel, give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to leave your comments down below. Thank you for your attention. Good luck, everyone.